Okay, so today I'm going to talk about a little bit more of the hip muscles. Last time we spent a lot of time talking about the glutes, and I'll probably go into more detail in the future about specific exercises to strengthen up the glutes. But today I'm going to go to the other side of the hip and talk about a muscle called the iliopsoas, more commonly known as the hip flexor. This is the muscle. It starts in the base of your pelvis right here and goes down into the hip right here onto the femur. And its major job is to lift the leg. It's hip flexor and pick up. This is probably really well known just for the mere fact that this is one of the big important running muscles. While you're running, it's the muscle that lets you pick up your feet. So very important with runners, but on the flip side of it, overused like crazy with runners. Runners have perpetually tight iliopsoas, which causes a lot of problems. Last time I talked about strengthening up the glutes. I'm not going to talk too much about how to strengthen the iliopsoas, just because that hip flexor is not, it's not really important to strengthen it. I think running strengthens it up just fine. I don't think most runners need to work on making it that much stronger. Some would disagree with me, and that's cool. If you have a favorite hip flexor exercise you want to put to work, have fun. I'd have no problem with exercising it. I just don't think it's necessary. Usually it's strong enough just with repetitive running. But the problem is with repetitive running, it's tighter and tighter and tighter. Well, if it's tight in this hip flexor, what happens is it pulls this pelvis down this direction towards the femur and gets you tight like that. And you're not going to, most of us don't walk around bent over like that. So instead, we want to straighten our legs. We want to stand up tall. So what ends up happening is our pelvis gets pulled forward like this because it's attached to the pelvis, not the rest of the body. So because we're standing up, our pelvis gets forward, but to stand up tall, we have to arch our back. I'm exaggerating it like crazy, but this is what happens. Our back gets arched like that. So what that leads to with a lot of runners is a lot of back problems because that back gets torqued like that. But also, going back to the IT band, it also leads to a lot of IT band problems because, again, you're tilted forward like that. Now there's a lot of strain on this IT band while you're running because the pelvis is tilted forward. The glutes are less effective because hip extension takes a lot more energy to do with the pelvis tilted forward like that. So the IT band is back to work and getting more and more strain where we don't want it. So the name of the game for runners is flexibility when it comes to the hip flexor. The more flexible it is, the better off we'll be. So two of my favorite ways to make it more flexible. One is mobilization stuff, including lunges. So again, we're going to talk about, we talked about it last time, but those reverse lunges are probably my favorite, where you go down and if you notice all this length on the iliopsoas, all this length on the hip flexor, you have to get it moving. And it's not a stretch per se as it is an active mobilization, because that's the main thing. It's going to make it more effectively flexible if you're actively moving the muscle as opposed to just do a passive stretch. So I love reverse lunges. I recommend usually like 2 sets of 10, 1 day a week doing those. That being said, you can flip it around. Traditional lunges are also great for it because while this leg is coming back, I think this is more effective. But if you do the other way and you do a traditional lunge, you still get that flexibility through the hip. This is also why I like yoga so much, because with yoga, you do like the classic warrior pose. You get in that position there, and again, you're elongated in the hip flexor, and because you're stabilizing and balancing, you're using all this musculature to not bust your booty. You get that nice active mobilization through the iliopsoas, which is way effective. My other way is stretching. I do like a good stretch on the iliopsoas. So the more mobile it is, the better. So exercises are good, but also stretching after a run. Stretching should always be done after a workout, not before. So the classic runner stretch where you grab your foot and you stretch it like that, I just ran, so now my hamstrings are cramping like a mofo. So that was fun. So that classic runner stretch is a good way to stretch out the hip flexor. You grab same hand. You can do it cross, but cross whenever you cross like that, you open up the hip a little bit, and it's not as effective on stretching the quad or the iliopsoas. A better way to stretch it is to grab it with the same hand. So left foot, left hand. Now you're elongated here. You're getting a good quad stretch too, which is great, but you're elongated here, which gets you more flexible. But that's not my favorite stretch for the hip flexor. My favorite is to get down and again in that lunge position, and you're going to put your foot on a box or some sort of, I use the sofa a lot in the house, but come down and get that deep stretch on the, with your knee on the floor, foot on the box. You want to get that deep stretch through the quad, and it's the same thing as the runner stretch, but because you're going, whenever you're doing it this way, you're adding that extra component. I need something to put my foot on. You're adding that extra component of a hip extension, and when you do that, you get more of a deep stretch through that hip flexor. So I like that kneeling stretch better for the iliopsoas. I usually hold that for about 2 minutes, just a long, prolonged stretch to kind of get it made more flexible. So those are 3 ways to really get some flexibility. There is also a, if yours are stupid tight, like if you do these 3 like I suggested, and they are killing you, there's a bunch of different things you can do for that. You can foam roll it. Just have the foam roller just go back and forth right on top of there. Or also there's a gadget you can buy if you want to spend some money. It's 2 little knobs that stick out like that, and you just lay on top of it right there and put pressure. You can also incidentally save you some money and get a tennis ball. And with a tennis ball, you just lay on your stomach with the tennis ball right there on the iliopsoas. You'll know it's on it because it won't be comfortable. You just lay on it, and I love that kind of passive stretch. What you do is just lay on it until you feel it relax. It usually takes 2-3 minutes of pain, and then it relaxes. This is why I'm not really showing you that release technique, because it hurts, and to be honest, I'd rather do small incremental stretch. That one's like a shotgun. It'll bam release that iliopsoas like crazy. I'd rather a longer span but more permanent solution, such as active mobilization. So if you have an injury, we can talk about using like a myofascial release with a tennis ball or a foam roller or something like that. But if you're not injured, I would say go the other way and just spend some time with active mobilization. So that's when you get your runner stretch. That's when you get your lunges. That's when you get that prayer kneeling stretch that I showed you. Do those instead, and you'll get better results that will last longer than if you just used a tennis ball or foam roller or even like a little gun right there. Those techniques are more for an injury. So the more flexible you are there, the better your posture is going to be, the better your pelvic position is going to be. It'll take strain off your back. It'll take strain off of the IT band. It's a good maintenance exercise to attack that hip flexor. So if you want any more details or any questions, please leave comments below, and I will see you next time.